There's a team that was formed by President William Ruto last year after a lot of public outcry on increasing cases of gender-based violence and femicide in the country. So he formed a technical working group on gender-based violence, including femicide, chaired by retired Lady Justice Nancy Baraza and many in her team. They worked for a long time. They finalized their report and they presented the report to the president formally yesterday. And we had that in the news. Dr. Nancy Baraza has now come to join us so we can discuss this report and particularly the findings of the task force, the technical working group. The technical working group, when you went around the country, what you found, what you saw, and the experts in the working group, what they said and the recommendations that are now contained in this particular report. Dr. good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you again. When we talked to you before, it was even before the end of your extended tenure as the working group. You got some slight extension, prepared your report. The report is here. So before we discuss it, you know the drill. Janet is going to give you the day's quote.
Yeah, okay. The day's quote is in commemoration of International Day of Commemoration in Memory of the Victims of the Holocaust, which is what today is, January 27th. Globally, it's been marked by UNESCO. The quote is by a survivor, and he said, "For evil to flourish, it only requires good men to do nothing." What do you make of that quote, even in relation to some of the work you've been doing?
When we maintain silence in the midst of happenings of GBV, of violations of human rights, then we let it flourish.
Yeah.
When we maintain silence, then we let it flourish. We are going to hear a bite of yesterday when you were presenting that report to the president. Philip, you've got that bite of Dr. Baraza as she was speaking. Let's hear what you told the president and the nation as regards your findings and your recommendations, and then we get into the conversation.
We are requesting that you declare GBV, including femicide, a national crisis, because indeed it is. And the reason for this recommendation, Your Excellency, is that once you declare it a national crisis, it will get the highest response from the highest office. And it will get urgent, coordinated, and survivor-centered action. What we found, sir, is a nation in pain, but also a nation demanding action. Both men and women, boys and girls are affected by gender-based violence, manifesting differently and at different scales. Families and communities are often the greatest barrier to justice. In many counties, clear criminal acts, including defilement and murder, are withdrawn from the justice system and settled through alternative dispute resolution mechanisms or maslaha.
Violence against any Kenyan is unacceptable. Violence rooted in gender, power, or inequality is a betrayal of our constitution, our values, and humanity.
That's the president speaking there shortly after Dr. Baraza at the launch of this report. I think briefly for us to begin, let's just go over what the report found, what the major elements of the report are, so then we can then see how to move forward and how to work on them.
Thank you very much. We had about 10 clear mandate, 10-point mandate in the gazettement notice. We were to look at the legal and policy frameworks. We were to look at the administrative frameworks. We were to look at funding. We were to look at family. We were to look at culture. We had to look at social media and its impact on GBV and femicide. We were to look at data collection and management, we were to look at all those. And I'm happy to report to the nation that we kept faithful to our terms of reference, and we have in our report and in our research tried to respond to each one of them.
Okay, maybe we can go one by one. Let's start with the legal framework. What are the recommendations of the report around having femicide declared as a crime separate and of its own?
Now, as we speak, Kenya doesn't have an offense specifically called femicide. Mm-hmm. We treat the killing of women as murder. Mm-hmm. And that is how we investigate it, that is how we prosecute it, right. And that is how we adjudicate. Mm-hmm. But approached that way, we ignore the motive because femicide involves women being killed because they are women, and they are killed because by partners, by things like domestic violence, power imbalances, cultural norms such as FGM, etc. Mm-hmm. And therefore, they are targeted because they are women. Right. A woman who dies at childbirth because she had been circumcised, mm-hmm. which is very often and very common among those women. Mm-hmm. That is a femicide, but we never look at it that way. Right. And therefore, it means that many cases of femicide are underreported because they are misinvestigated, misprosecuted, and misadjudged.
Mm-hmm. Right. So does then the report recommend that femicide be declared a crime on its own, separate from murder?
Yes, we are recommending that the Attorney General amends the Penal Code to codify femicide as a crime in its own right, so that we do not prosecute it or treat it as an ordinary homicide or a murder. Mm-hmm. And that way, then we will catch those nuances. Mm-hmm. We shall catch the motive, and therefore we shall investigate it better and respond to it in a better manner than we do today.
I say, in addition to that recommendation that we amend the penal code, you're also saying let's amend other statutes. Mm-hmm. The Sexual Offences Act, for example, we amend it and deny victims of gender-based violence the right to withdraw their cases once prosecution has commenced. Mm-hmm. Also amend it to provide for a timeline of 6 months to start and conclude cases of gender-based violence, and also include chemical castration for both male and female child sex offenders. Now, these are far-reaching recommendations. Let me start with the first one. Yeah. Denial of the right of a victim to withdraw a case. Mm-hmm. Explain that. And then look at it from, you're a legal scholar, from the rights perspective of the victim and the pursuit of justice.
Yeah.
What happens is many victims of GBV are coerced, mostly by family, by community, to withdraw their cases because of coercion, and sometimes because of economic pressure. Here is a woman, a severely battered woman, but she has children, and their only source of livelihood is the husband. So she looks at it that if this man is going to get jailed, how will I feed my children? How will I survive? And mostly it is family pressure. They are threatened with being evicted out of the family, etc., etc. And so halfway done, after the police have investigated, after prosecutions have started, then they withdraw the case. And more often than not, they go back to that home and they die. I know so many. I worked at feeder for years. They go back and they never survive for another year. They die. So why we are recommending that is that cases must go on to the conclusion so that the perpetrators of GBV are held accountable. The state can step in to see how this woman and her children can survive away from this battering husband. That's what we are saying. But for as long as we do it halfway and then we withdraw, then the impunity will continue.
We'll never
and
address
as
the
I
issue.
told you, they die.
Are there other ways to encourage victims to pursue justice all the way to the end, as opposed to just refusing them the right to withdraw a case? Because like Eric said, it is your right at any point to withdraw a case against someone. And then I'm thinking, while the intended consequence might be that we see cases all the way to the end, the unintended consequence likely is that people don't start the prosecution process because they don't have the option. It's you're either in 100% or you're out, which then again is also problematic in and of itself, because then you don't even start. And I think for victims of gender-based violence, the start-stop, like you said, unfortunately, it does sometimes end up in loss of life, but it is also just part and parcel of the cycle.
The cycle,
that it's a start and stop, and then hopefully at some point a full stop.
Gender-based violence is not just an individual vice. It is a social vice. It affects all of us, the entire society. So that we are seeing it from the perspective of not being specifically an individual right issue. The police get involved. We spend resources investigating and commencing prosecution. And lives are lost. More often than not, those women are going to die. We are saving their lives. So that it goes beyond an individual right. It is a social problem that we must see the best way to address it. And in our view, we think that prosecution should go up to the end. Otherwise, perpetrators of GBV will never be held accountable. And so the issue of individual right, the community also has rights. But we are saying the state will step in and take care of those children.
Override this.
The state, that, like, the lack of individual rights is also what has been used over time to keep victims of gender-based violence in those homes. It's like this is a societal issue, not an individual problem. It's unavunja jamii, not nyumba yako. So that same societal argument is what has been used over time to keep women in terrible situations. Then now the state is still using the same argument to have them. What I'm seeing here is a lack of autonomy for women, because again,
or for victims.
Yeah, for victims. Right? Yes.
But also, Dr. Baraza, as you respond to this, because you can see where the concern is coming from, right?
I understand.
And we want you to give us practical examples. Maybe as the working group, did you speak to victims and did you realize that this is what they would have wanted? Number one, in your many years in this space, even at FIDA, is it what you picked up? And is there a recommendation that addresses this? Because the concern here is, if I know that this case, once this case starts, there is no opportunity for even a conversation that is going to take place. I will be ostracized by the community. What happens to me if I'm ostracized by the community? I see a recommendation here that talks about creating a national GBV and Femicide response fund, and also talking about survivor-centered support and reintegration. Maybe, how strong are those recommendations to support this survivor, this victim, so that even if the case goes on, you know at least you have taken care of them?
Yes, and that is exactly the reason why we have proposed the creation of this GBV and Femicide Response Fund, which will involve the government, and we have proposed government treasury allocates a specific amount. We have said 15 billion annually And then development partners who have been helping can also contribute to that kitty, as well as the private sector, because GBV is a security issue. It affects how we do business, and so we must contribute to that kitty, and that money will go towards victim support, like those ones, like those women. Right now, we don't have any. But if we have it in place, we have sufficient resources, that woman can be withdrawn from the sitters of violation in the home, away from that battering husband, and the children can be supported. She can go to a temporary home. She can go to a shelter, and they will be supported.
What have the, just going back to the question, talk to us about what the victims have been telling you as you've gone gathering this information to be able to conclude that this could be a solution. What has stood out as a commonality? Because you went to different counties.
Yes, we
What
did.
is it that victims have said to you?
The victims, most of them are helpless. Most of them are coerced. Most of them have nowhere to go, no form of support. And that is how most of them would rather stay with that abusive husband. And we know so many cases where they die. And in our report, in our findings, we found that that domestic area is the epicenter of femicide at 60%. It is that so-called home. Now, unless we put in place mechanisms to save these people, if they want to stay there, they can stay. But the majority stay because there is no choice. There is no hope for their own survival and the children's survival.
It somehow makes sense to me, by the way. You know, both cases. My fear is that the fund will take forever to be operationalized, but by that time, we'll easily have amended the law, the Sexual Offences Act. My fear is that this support that we are saying, because the intention here is to say, let's remove you from this environment where you are facing danger and harm that could lead to your death. Let's support you to thrive in a different environment. Support is not 3 weeks. It cannot be just that time for recovery and survivor-centered support. And it's more than that. It is after that. You say introduce economic empowerment programs, emergency safety nets to support survivors in breaking the dependency cycles and rebuilding livelihoods. The operationalization of this, Dr. Baraza, that's where the rubber will meet the road.
Absolutely.
Because if this fails, everything else
But even
fails.
before we go there, let's also focus on the perpetrator, because I find like a lot of the time, and these solutions I think have been recommended in different pockets. You see them work, right? Safe houses, economic empowerment. It keeps the victim safe, and in some cases it helps build up to the court case. But I often find like that is such an important focal point, and then sometimes it's at the expense of how do we even stop this pattern from yielding this result. So we also have to hold as much emphasis on the perpetrators, because it's easy to get comfortable because these people's lives depend on being saved. But the less we hit the nail on accountability, even if, to Eric's point, trying to do the profile of the perpetrator, then we're just going to keep building shelters and trying to rescue people. So I really want to find out what the biggest takeaway has been for how to deal with perpetrators. I don't know. I've intercepted your.
Right.
I've intercepted your question. I think I still think it's important.
Because there's one where the recommendations here include
Chemical castration.
trying to, go into community and stopping incidences, and also now accountability for the perpetrators. Amend the act. Let's have a quick legal process, and let's have stiff penalties for the perpetrators and so on and so forth. But even as that is happening, I was bringing out the issue of the victim, because the perpetrator can be jailed. But if the perpetrator has the side of the community will ostracize the victim further, right? So victim support is very, very important.
100%.
So that it also encourages the victim to come out immediately the first time it happens, I'm going to get support. And then the side of the perpetrator also, and once the victims have support, even the perpetrators, maybe that could also be part of addressing the perpetrator. So it's both. I don't know, Dr. Baraza.
Absolutely, and for the perpetrators, we are saying the justice system has to work.
Right.
Investigations have to be done, and seriously, so that we don't dismiss wife battering as a private thing. So as we take care of the victims and the children and her concerns, the law enforcement agencies are dealing with the perpetrator. And we want to stop that cycle of impunity. The wife has been beaten badly, she goes to court, okay, she comes back, goes back, and the man is like, oh, you have come back to me, so, and he continues to beat her. So it is a very integrated report, so that if we implement it in a cohesive manner, then most of these things will fall in place. Eric talked about my experiences at FIDA. I saw so many of them who went back and died. I saw so many die.
And I want to talk about the what do I call them? The ground level fixes, because like I said, that cycle happens, everywhere in the world, anywhere where there's any form of gender-based violence, right? And the going back leads to escalation and sometimes to femicide, which is a very sad thing. And we'll talk about maybe from a community and family perspective, the recommendations there that are, there are. But I want to touch on a few of, the one on chemical castration, I wanted to know what informed that and what that is. And then there's also another one on criminalizing the medicalization of FGM. Talk to me about those two.
Okay, chemical castration, very controversial.
Yeah.
But I talked about children. If you watched my entire short speech, children are facing horrible violation, both boys and girls, at the hands of parents, people who are supposed to care for them. Parents who are literally preying on 3-year-old, defiling them, sodomizing them. And then there is this culture of silence. Nobody can dare talk about it. Not even a mother can protect that girl. They keep quiet and they are living with it. I went to those places. They came. They were crying because they say they are ostracized by society if they dare talk about the husbands defiling children. And it is so rife.
True.
Now, what do you do with those people? How do you help with these children? We are toying with the best way, solutions. Now, chemical castration, I remember it came up when we were enacting the Sexual Offences Act in 2006. It had that provision of chemical castration. But of course, Parliament twisted us and said, unless you remove it, we are not passing the Sexual Offences Act. That's how Honorable Joaquin Dungu, ourselves, removed chemical castration. Now, what is the nature of chemical castration? It is a temporary measure. It is reversible. It's not like
Permanent.
It's not permanent.
Okay.
It's not permanent. So that if you have a father who is doing nothing else but defile these children, and he's cutting across the board, what do we do with these men? Probably do chemical castration to reduce their libido, so that these children are safe.
Is this in lieu of criminal penalty or in tandem with now criminal penalty? So are they staying in the home, or are they going through the justice system and being castrated, or is this instead of
Castrate and go home.
Yeah, castrate and go home.
Castration.
Maybe come a bit closer to the.
Sorry, chemical castration is part of the sentence. Okay, but what we have in mind is these helpless children. I talked about. We came across 4-year-olds who have been defiled until their intestines are hanging outside their bodies. That's what we saw. We saw little boys who have been torn by their own relatives, their own fathers. What do? We are not picking recommendations from the sky. We are dealing with a very serious problem in this country. People have turned onto their children. And those children are most vulnerable. They are defenseless. If we as state do not step in, where parents have refused or failed to protect these children, what do?
Also,
Yeah, no, this was something that I saw piloted, the 2002 program for prisons in Southwest England, because I was wondering, I think there was another country as well that has recently passed that.
Yes.
But yeah, to her point, it's delivered through taking various drugs that limit invasive sexual thoughts, anti-androgens, reducing the production of testosterone and limit libido, and they're taken alongside psychiatric work that target the causes of sexual offending.
right. Okay.
So
How long does it last? So is it a 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 15 year?
For as long as you keep injecting the medicine, the drug, your libido will be low.
and the idea is that you are, going through the justice system. And then it's also understanding the monstrosity behind the pattern.
Yeah.
Because you could do all that, the justice system, the chemical castration. What about preventing the repeat offenders? Does that make sense? Like, what does it look like to work in a way that perpetrators are held accountable, punished, but that there's also something more permanent and sustainable in stopping the pattern of perpetrators? Controversially, some people would say when you're seeking justice or when you are hopefully going to be held accountable, there's also some measure of criminal analyzing or psychology or rehab, because otherwise the fear is you were chemically castrated for whatever period of time, it wore off. You were held accountable and put in prison, and I think a majority of people who are put in prison for matters like rape, etc., get back into society very quickly. That is perhaps one of the reasons why the repeat offenders keep happening. So what's the conversation around punishment, but also trying to keep offenders, trying to prevent repeat offenders?
Rehabilitate them?
Is that something that came up?
That is a possibility. Psychosocial support for victims and also perpetrators where necessary. So, for example, if somebody has had a dose of chemical castration, probably they will change with counseling, with sufficient psychiatric support, because what is the state of this man who, it was very recent in Kiambu here, who has defiled all his 5 daughters. Some pregnant, they force an abortion. Force the abortion. You are looking at a nation of children who have been so abused that they will never live a normal life. They have been forced to abort. What do we do with them? Right. That is perhaps psychiatric, perhaps social something. And those have to come in. We have made broad recommendations, but I guess the nitty-gritties come in. But chemical castration, let it not be the headline. It is something that could work. Tell me, what do we do with this Kiambu man?
Right.
How much incarceration would it take to actually say that he has faced justice? Just to understand, the recommendation on chemical castration is where there is defilement of children, right?
It's just children.
It's just for children, where the victim is a child.
Yes.
So the perpetrator here, male or female, gets the chemical castration.
Yes, those ones with an unbridled desire for those children. It is just for children, both men and women, because women are also defiling children.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for victims who are adults, the chemical castration the recommendation does not extend to that.
No. we are limiting it to children.
All right.
This one, let them face the normal justice system. Expeditious, hopefully.
6 months.
6 months.
6 months of what?
Oh, is that
Of
the
the
timeline?
yes. So that it doesn't go on for 10 years until all the witnesses are dead, until people have forgotten what the case was. And that is how impunity keeps increasing. So if we make the justice system institutions functional, and the Chief Justice is doing quite a good job on this, and if we can reduce the time frame within which to conclude SGBV cases.
Like the SGBV courts.
Yes, which she has set up, but not in every county. She needs more funds.
True.
And we want it in every county, or even more in every county. And then the period is reduced. I think that way, then we shall see justice.
There's a recommendation here, just a high-level recommendation, that seeks to criminalize non-reporting of GBV incidents. Explain that. So you're saying that it shall be mandatory for members of the public to report GBV incidents, and there'll be a penalty for non-reporting.
Yes. So if you, Eric, knows that your neighbor batters the wife, and we do this, it is all over. We consider domestic violence a private
Mambo ya kinyumbani.
mambo ya kinyumbani. You don't interfere. So that your neighbor who is battered every day, we don't report. We just go like nothing is happening. And that is what results in femicide, by the way. And we don't report because we consider it a private thing. What we are saying, and I think I gave my example, a wife is being battered. We all know she's being battered. The whole village knows that man is a batterer, battering the wife. We don't report. Then when this woman eventually dies, then we go to the burial place. Hii tulijua itafanyika. It is unfortunate she has died, but it was bound to happen. Really, as citizens, don't we have utu? Don't we have human care? That's what we are saying.
I know
that you must, citizens are put under an obligation to report. And you don't report, you are complicit in that commission.
I know this is going into the legal framework of it, but how do you prove that someone knows? How do you prove that I know?
How do you enforce this?
How do you enforce it? Yeah.
How do I enforce? I've given you the example. And
But
they
you
are
know,
so common. People are
will
being
say-
battered in the next house. Everybody knows who batters the wife.
But
We
proving in
know
a
it.
court of law, unless you have incontradictable evidence that I saw my neighbor being battered. You have CCTV footage of me watching and doing nothing and not reporting. Beyond that, it's very hard to prove that someone knows or that they did not report when they were, in some cases it might be easier, but in a lot I think it would be quite hard to prove that someone knew and did not report.
A law also can act as a deterrent. Okay, if we all know that if you know that your neighbor is being battered, let me tell you, we know that they are being battered. They scream, they cry until the last sound comes out of them, and we say nothing. What we are saying is that let's have an obligation as citizens, and it has worked. It has worked in Rwanda. It has worked in Fiji. We did comparative studies for best practice.
Right.
Yes, and it has worked. And for you, my sister, walking around knowing that there is a law that will make me an accused person because I didn't report, I think it will push us into action.
Okay. Talk to me about the medicalization of FGM, because you've also sought to criminalize that. What is the medicalization of FGM?
There is a provision in the Anti-FGM Act of 2012, which, of course, Anti-FGM Act criminalizes FGM, but there is that provision which exempts that FGM on medical grounds. There is a provision there, and it is being taken advantage of.
Okay.
So that we got it in Kisii and Nyamira. It is all right now. Doctors are using that provision to perform FGM. As we are telling the traditional circumcisers, down your tools so that we find alternative methods of
rites of passage.
Rites of passage. And actually in some places they have downed their tools.
Yes.
But then now we have these medics who are now utilizing that provision to do FGM on young children, go to hospitals. They are undertaking FGM for 250,000.
All right.
Yes.
I think that's an important one because there has been an increase in, what did I call it? Consensual FGM, even of older women who are, definitely not children. I did not know about the exemption in the Anti-FGM Act. That's very odd. Now,
I don't know, what would that, some of your members of your working group were doctors. In fact, your vice chair, Dr. Denya, is a doctor.
Yes.
When they hear that doctors are now performing it on medical ground, what's that medical ground? What is the medical ground that would say a doctor make the decision that I need to actually perform this?
There could be probably a malformed organ that could amount to a medical condition that requires surgery. Okay? It could be that.
So cosmetic surgeries as well?
Cosmetic surgeries...
Because that could be used by a doctor. I mean, this person came to me and they said, they needed some cosmetic surgery because of, they felt that they wanted
this and that.
This enlarged or this reduced.
Probably. But then the doctors are using that provision.
And do you want to criminalize that?
We are saying like a child has no capacity to consent. Okay? And what is happening on children, they are moved into hospitals and circumcised. What the older women do, that is another area of violation of the law.
Right.
But these are children. They have no capacity to consent.
So this, the medicalization of FGM, that is with respect to minors, right? Criminalize, amend the Prohibition on Female Genital Mutilation Act to completely criminalize medicalization of FGM. So is this in respect to minors or to society?
It's across the board because FGM is a criminal offense. Okay, and the Supreme Court, the High Court, has pronounced itself on it that there is no value in FGM. You remember the tattoo case?
Yes.
That doctor who went to litigate, saying it goes against our culture. The court has pronounced itself. So it is across the board.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know survivors have also pointed at police as a point of failure. So there's that entire chain of command in justice. There's the police, there's the medics, there's the legal. Talk to us about, especially when it comes to police. And I know a lot of the time what we've heard over the years is under-resourcing, poor training, but unfortunately the cases continue to rise. What did you hear stand out about police interference, and what are some of the recommendations around that?
Police, the major complaint against the police is they are just a part and parcel of society, which sees domestic violence or GBV as a normal thing. Okay, so that victims going to report to police stations, most times they are turned away. Say, oh, that is a domestic thing. Go back to the husband. Or, what wrong did you commit? He can't just have beaten you up. Or, how are you dressed? Or, did you cook well?
Right.
You know, that kind of dismissive attitude. it came out quite clearly that the police should be sensitized and trained on the law, on respect for human rights. And one of our recommendations is that massive training of the police and other justice agencies.
Right. As it stands, does every police station have a gender desk?
Not all of them do, but most, I think, do. But sometimes, even if they do, that mental status of the police, unless it changes, then those desks don't matter.
Right.
Where men go to report violation, and they are told, hey, you are embarrassing the male gender.
Yeah.
Don't talk about it. Go home. That mental attitude must change. And that is what we are envisaging or seeing within these sensitization and training programs that we are proposing.
I'm trying to see if there's anyone on the legal frameworks that we haven't covered. I think we've gotten through most of them. The criminalization of, there's something about family. Yes. Interference in GBV cases, including family or clan-led settlements, and the coercion of survivors to withdraw complaints. I think this is often seen, in various places across the country, actually, but more so especially in northern Kenya, where people bargain and, call it a day.
In the exchange a cow between men to eat the cow.
Right.
And then the case is forgotten.
So the recommendation here is a criminal penalty where there's a clan-led settlement or where survivors are coerced to withdraw their complaints.
Yes.
Okay.
How does that then augur with where you talk about strengthening dispute resolution systems, where you professionalize community-based structures like Nyumba Kumi, village elders, chiefs through mandatory training on prevention and response that's survivor-centered, developing and mandating standardized training curricula, establishing clear referral protocols to police, health, and judicial services. When you went to the ground, and I'm assuming here that you went to some of these communities, did you get to understand why they choose those traditional or local ways of dealing with justice? Why do people go to the wazaes?
The maslaha way. Yeah.
The maslaha, partly it is the customs that we are better off settling our issues this way, including GBV issues. And we have a way of settling this thing. Yeah. Then the men who are making that decision will decide the perpetrator can pay 2 cows, which are eaten there. And where is the victim in all this? Okay, so it is culture that fuels that in most cases.
But is there something more, Dr. Baraza, in terms of why does a community choose to have its own ways of dealing with conflict, while the community is well aware that there is another government structure of dealing with this conflict? They know there's a Nyumba Kumi mzee here, there's a chief, there's a sub-chief. In fact, a chief is a mzee in the village. A sub-chief is a mzee in the village. The police station is right there. They take all other matters to the police, and then there are very many matters that they will not take to the police. Yeah. Why?
Some of them is because of the slow justice system. It's quite an issue where you stay in the courts for 10 years, for 6 years. So people decide to go the shorter way. So that is one of the reasons. And the other one is, as I've said, is custom. And we want, in our new approach, to differentiate between positive culture and negative culture. So that when the culture is being an impediment to dealing with issues of GBV, that is not culture that we should respect.
Was there any thought given to integrating some of these alternative dispute resolution mechanisms like maslaha, whether it starts with civic education for said elders, things like that, and bringing them into the fold, not a replacement for the criminal justice system, but having them understand, because they're still essentially the norm holders in their communities. So a top-down approach might also work in now getting that information out to the whole community, as opposed to it's criminalized, and then people will either hide or just find roundabout ways of doing it.
What we are saying in the context of GBV is that it should go the normal criminal justice system. Because when it is taken to ADR and Maslaha, then more often than not, justice for victims is not met. Okay, so we are removing it.
My way is just to think of like the resistance from communities that have been doing this for so long. Is there a way to educate, to inform, to, and bring them into the fold so that they are even working in tandem with the criminal justice system? Because I see resistance coming forth. They're very
where the law comes in and there's punishment into it, it just goes under.
We are saying there is going to be massive sensitization, massive awareness creation among all those communities, so that we make people in northern area with their maslaha to teach them about the dangers of using maslaha as
a dispute resolution.
Yes, a district resolution for GBV. Okay, we will educate them that this is negative. Now, for chiefs and Nyumba Kumi and what, we are recommending very strong community participation in sensitization, in training, and therefore they will be trained on how they can help the police, for example, how the Nyumba Kumi could be the place where a first response place. The domestic violence thing, the chiefs know. So we sensitize them. It's not just a domestic thing. It's not a private thing.
Everyone. It's an all of us approach.
An all of us
Very
approach.
quickly, before we wind up, you said it should be declared a national crisis. I don't know if we got to the part where it will officially be declared a national crisis, or whether...
What did the president say
about declaring it a national crisis?
The president undertook to implement most of our recommendations. Now, he did say that he has received the report, he has received the recommendations, but they are government procedures, and he wants to do it right. The report has to go to cabinet. They have to debate who does what and what should we do. But looking at him, and he understands the gravity of the issue. It is something that he most likely will take on board.
Okay.
In 30 seconds, it was my last one. From now, a family, society, education perspective, what are the recommendations, just very briefly, of this report in now treating the disease as opposed to now dealing with the symptoms?
A lot of education for the entire community, for entire law enforcement sector, for our chiefs, training, mainstreaming gender issues in police training, and training of prosecutors. It is something that we are doing, and that will now help change our mindset about GBV.
Hopefully we'll continue. It's a massive conversation. It needs massive intervention. But thank you for sharing the findings and some of what you found in the report. National Chairperson for the GBV Technical Working Group, Dr. Nancy Baraza, has been our guest for this last hour. In the next hour, in just a moment, there's a part 2 of a conversation that started last week on Your World, Infidelity in Marriage. That's going to be coming up on NTV on Your World, and on Vibe Shift with Brian Aseli and Claudia Naisabwa. There's Bayani, who is an artist. That's on Nation FM. From me, Janet Bogwa, from Mariam Bishar, from Eric Latif, thank you for staying with Fixing the Nation. Eric will be on Last Word, so you'll see him tonight. Mariam and I, you'll see us special as we. Thank you very much. Have a good day.